Now, James, I want to ask you, first of all, about this debate around interment. What are your thoughts on it? Ken Wyatt, your front bench Liberal colleague yesterday, said that he's open to the idea. What do you make of it?
Morning, Kieran. Yeah, I saw some of Ken's comments last night, and he was absolutely right to say that as a government we put the security and safety of Australian people as our #1 priority. I don't agree, though, that interment is the best way to deliver that. I mean, speaking as plainly as possible, interment is a fancy way of saying put people in jail who have not been charged or convicted of a crime. And other than at times of world war, it's not something that a liberal democracy would ever or should ever contemplate. So I don't think that's the answer to making Australians secure. If we believe there are people in our community who should not be free to go about their lives in our community, then we need to change the law so that they can be charged and they can be convicted and they can be put in jail in the normal legal way, in the normal judicial process.
Is there scope for a greater monitoring of individuals before charge or conviction via control orders and that sort of thing, do you think?
Absolutely. All those sorts of changes are entirely reasonable and should be very carefully considered at a time like this where we are facing greater threats, where the lone wolf or so-called lone wolf attacks are becoming more common in the Western world. We should be looking at all kinds of measures, including the incitement to violence that happens in some of our communities, to ensure that our laws are accurately and up-to-date and ready to prosecute these crimes when they're committed.
Senator Paterson, are you satisfied that the Finkel report will placate elements of your party worried that it might damage industry and put upward pressure on prices? That's certainly the message we've heard from Craig Kelly. He wants greater reassurance and Erica Betts, among others, raising concerns.
Well, I don't think it's about placating elements of the party. It's about choosing a system which achieves Australia's objectives. Our objectives of, I think most importantly, reliable energy, second most importantly, affordable energy. And if you can achieve both those things and at the same time also reduce emissions, then that's a good thing. And Dr Finkel has offered us a pathway forward, but he hasn't actually said exactly how we should go down that path. For the purposes of modelling, he's chosen an emissions intensity benchmark of about 600 kilograms per megawatt hour, but actually that's a policy choice for government, exactly where we set that, because that's a trade-off between emissions and affordability. So the government may set that at that level or at a different level, and that's something that we've got to talk about as a party, examine the costs and benefits of doing that, and ultimately make a decision.
The coalition's often critical of Labor for being ideological on this issue of climate, but are you worried that some of your colleagues are ideological when it comes to the need for future coal-fired power generation? Why is that a must?
Well, I don't think it's about whether coal is in or out, Kieran. It's about whether we should set the emissions intensity benchmark at a lower or higher level, and that includes more or less technologies. I mean, if we do want to be technology neutral, if we do want to be agnostic about the source of energy that we get from, then the most important thing is we set an emissions intensity benchmark that we think is reasonable, that sets a fair pace of emissions reduction, at the same time preserves security and reliability. Now, for example, Kieran, if we were to build a modern, high-efficiency, low-emissions coal-fired power station, that could reduce emissions by 40 to 50% over an existing outdated, older coal-fired power station. Now, the planet doesn't care how those emissions reductions occur. We all benefit if the emissions are reduced, and whether that's done by modern coal or gas or renewables, I think that's ultimately a good thing.
Senator Paterson, appreciate your time. Thank you on this long weekend Monday. We'll talk to you soon. A quick break. Back in just a moment. Stay with us.